And I would say that, with that in mind, you don't need to be as concerned about, the quick handling of a 26-inch mountain bike. But anyways, that's kind of the lowdown on that. So if you're riding those trails a lot, then maybe try out a newer 29-inch mountain bike that has some good geometry to it. See if you can take a test ride, or maybe rent one of those bikes and see how it suits you on those trails. But overall, I think that's becoming less and less of a concern. It's just something to know about. And then the 29ers have been difficult for shorter people. Some of the bike manufacturers have had trouble, making the geometry of the frame fit correctly. Especially the top tube of the bike. When when you've got these 29-inch wheels, it kind of boosts the frame up, and so it just is a little more difficult to fit everything properly to get the front wheel clearance so that it doesn't hit your feet. And there's just some things that have needed to be ironed out. But I think with the new bikes, they are adapting to that and have figured out ways to make the geometry work. So, but just something to keep in mind as well, that for shorter people it may not work right, but I think that's becoming less and less of a problem. For like the hardcore downhilling and free riding, personally I wouldn't recommend it. I think that the wheels are not quite as strong, and it just kind of comes down to that physics. The larger wheel has more of a tendency to taco or bend, just based on the sort of the large diameter of the wheel. And the smaller diameter wheels just are in general a bit stronger. And to tell you the truth, I don't know that many 29-inch hardcore downhill and free riding mountain bikes out there. I think that they're coming up with some that are pretty good, larger travel 29-inch wheel mountain bikes. But in general, I just don't think you're going to find much of that equipment out there. So if you're into that, then I'd probably just stick with the 26-inch wheel. And then another thing too is that the bike choices are somewhat limited. It's changing for sure. I mean, it's becoming more and more of a mainstream thing. And I think a lot of these manufacturers are realizing it, and they're making a lot of bikes that are specific for that. So anyways, it's just something to keep in mind. If you have your heart set on a bike, a really particular bike, and it only comes in a 26-inch, well, that may be just the way it goes. But I think as the years go on, they're going to be offering more and more of the 29-inch bike choices for you. And then that kind of ties into the whole parts thing too. It's still a little bit, it's still a little bit of a fringe thing. So I think that if you are doing like mountain bike touring, or you're on a trip where these parts, mountain bike parts are going to be hard to come by, and like, let's say you cut your mountain bike tire, it's probably, you're more likely going to find a 26-inch mountain bike part, like a tire or a tube or maybe a rim if you needed it. You're more likely to find that in the smaller shops, or shops that are just in really small towns. And if you're mountain bike touring, you could just be in a very remote location and need to have those parts. So something to keep in mind if that's the kind of riding that you're doing, because it'd be a real bummer to not be able to get the parts that you need. So that's pretty much the information on the 29-inch versus the 26-inch wheel. This episode's trail review, or featured trail segment, is the Alpine Trail in Oakridge, Oregon. This is a trail that I grew up riding and ridden many times. I grew up in Eugene, which is about a little under an hour from Oakridge. And this was Oakridge is a really great place. There's a ton of riding there, some just amazing trails, and the town is actively promoting mountain biking. And there's I think a few tour companies out of there, and a bike shop. And it's a pretty small town, but it's just an amazing place to ride. So I'm going to talk about the Alpine Trail, but if you get a chance to visit Oakridge, there's plenty more riding than just this trail. There's a whole bunch of them. So I'd highly recommend checking out Oakridge, because it's I think it's sort of an up and coming place. It's going to be on par with sort of the Moab and Durango and places like that for mountain bike riding in the U.S. at least. So